Hi, this is Emily Comark, and this is Module 10, the case study regarding getting the child out of my classroom. A summary, we have Carl, who is a third grade student. He is identified as a child with a behavior disorder. There are not any academic concerns. Carl is currently in Mrs. Taylor's class. Mrs. Taylor has some concerns about the aggression he's showing towards her, and Mrs. Green is the new special education teacher following the plans in place from a former special education teacher. And the team is looking at solutions and interventions to assist Carl and provide the most appropriate school setting for him. Problem identification and analysis. We know that Carl is, like I said, identified as having a behavior disorder. There are not any academic concerns. We know that Carl's having a really rough time at home. His parents are divorced. That's a struggling relationship amongst parents, so custody issues play into that. We know that the Special Education Cooperative has limited resources, as well as administration is limited in the building. We know that Mrs. Green is new to the profession, and we know that Mrs. Taylor just is really adamant about removing Carl from her classroom. We need to know if Carl is receiving any counseling services outside school, in school. Has the social worker visited with the family previously? Is there any information that can be shared? Has there been any documentation of time, possible triggers, who's sitting around him, when does it happen, are there typical times? All of those documentation things we still need. He was on an incentive reward program the previous year, and it's working or not working. We need to know what steps, what the fallout is from that program. Why is that program not working for him in this classroom setting? And if there's any outside programs that he could benefit from. For example, he needs some positive role models in his life right now, or people to connect with him and show him some care and love. And is there Big Brothers Big Sisters, a YMCA, an after school program, any kinds of resources out there available? The problem, how can the team support Carl and continue to work together to ensure his rights to a free, appropriate public education? And Mrs. Taylor wants Carl out of her classroom, and Mrs. Green needs to make sure that Carl is learning in the most appropriate educational setting. And that's really the key here, is making sure that the team has Carl in the right place and has strategies in place to support him and help him continue to grow. First of all, we're going to, there was a plan in the case study that was approved by parent signatures. We're going to move forward with that plan. A part of that plan is we're going to continue to meet to develop strategies, document. We're going to look at some documentation. When is the behavior happening? Is there a reason? Social workers and counselors, we're going to get those professionals involved to see if we can get any insight, see if he'll open up, if he can recognize the feelings or the emotions or the times, or if there's any connection as to why his aggression just comes out towards Mrs. Taylor. We're also going to meet as the building principal. We are going to meet as a team to discuss the importance of keeping him in the classroom and just finding strategies to help him cope, because academically there are not any concerns, so the classroom is still the best environment as long as we're not socially hurting him with the peers in his classroom seeing behaviors that are not helpful for him. We want as a staff, we want Carl to be able to stay in the classroom with his peers the most of the time, but when he's having an aggressive moment, he needs to be able to remove himself in order to, one, keep his own dignity, but also let the other peers in his classroom not see those moments that are a real struggle for him, and be able to get himself together and collect himself to be able to come back for academics. We want to continue to document all of our meetings, and we want to make sure that classroom teachers and special education teachers are following what is agreed upon and continue to seek outside resources. The plan in place supports keeping him in the classroom by documenting and observing. We can find those patterns or see if there's some strategies we can use to help him in the classroom and outside of the classroom and pulling him. We're going to help him socially because we want Carl to continue to be able to be social, but we also are going to see if we can assist Carl through the resources we have available in the district. As I thought about this situation, I am not naive to the fact that this does happen at times. I think as a profession we have a problem when we don't have enough professional development or teachers are not aware of the strategies that they can use or the tools they can use to support a child who's having a difficult time behaviorally and emotionally. And I think sometimes teachers just feel like, I just can't have that child in my classroom. And unfortunately, that's not what we're here to do. Our goal is to make sure that the student, one, is in the most appropriate setting, and two, getting the best education possible. And as an administrator, that's my job, to make sure that my teachers have the resources available to them, one, the professional development available to them, and also know who to seek information from, who to seek help, and how to keep a team together and have team communication going so that everyone's on the same page and advocating for that child. We still have some issues to resolve. The colleague relationships are going to continue to be worked on. Understanding Carl's behaviors, we need to know what those triggers are, how to change the resources and the lack thereof administrative presence in the building in this situation, and also work on that parent-school relationship, because working together is so important for the child, and all members of the team need to be present and engaged in the conversation regarding Carl. As the school leader, I'm going to make sure that my teachers are following the IEP. I'm going to observe to make sure that attitudes regarding Carl and his situation are respected and that personal feelings are set aside. That's really important because in this situation it sounds like Mrs. Taylor really wants him out of the classroom. Well, with that statement being so bold, there is automatically going to be some emotion tied to that. And as the building administrator, it's my job to make sure that Carl does not feel as though his teacher does not want him. I will be present in the meetings, documenting, reviewing the structure for staff members to have the resources, and really committing to the staff and families in finding solutions to support Carl, whether that be in the school building, whether that be additional resources outside of the school building. What can we do to provide support for not only Carl, but his family and the staff members getting what they need in order to help Carl be successful? Effective management. As a building leader, you have to be present and engaged in all meetings. You have to provide the resources and funding. That's on the administrator, making sure that if we're going to say we need an extra paraprofessional because the special education teacher can't be there to pull him out during those aggressive times, do we have the resources? Do we have the people available? How is this going to work, and how does this affect all the other programs in a school building? Assisting the staff with the parent relationships and communication, making sure they understand that while the family conversations may be difficult, we have an obligation to be an advocate and support Carl in everything that we do. And getting involved in advocating for the child shows a leadership style that I want to have. Is yes, my staff is important, and I'm going to make sure that they have what they need to be successful and support students, but I also need to make sure that families feel as though I'm supporting them and doing whatever I can in tough situations. It's social learning. So granting the approval for Carl to leave the classroom is really important, because we don't want Carl to be in a situation where he is showing his peers a side of him that is a moment of really lack of coping skills. And until he has those coping skills in place, we don't want his peers to make some judgments about him that aren't realistic. Okay? Every child has their moment, every adult has their moment. Everyone has a time where they are just trying to go through the motions and deal with something, but we also want students to see Carl for who Carl really is, and we don't want them to see him and have that emotional, aggressive behaviors connected to him solely as their own perspective. And really, staff interactions, promoting staff social interactions. Students watch our staff members 100% of the time. The behaviors that we model as adults are the behaviors and the communication styles that they're seeing as their role models. So really working with the staff to continue to build that trust and relationship with one another will really trickle down to the students, and they'll see that modeled social interactions amongst staff. Academic learning is important. We want Carl to continue to achieve academic success. So by keeping him in the classroom and letting him only have moments where he's out, that shows that we're committed to his academic success. We're also committed to the success of other students, because we want to make sure that they continue to learn and are not disrupted by one child's behaviors. And assisting the teachers with their professional development shows that we're committed to making sure that our staff have the best, have the most available professional development, so that they can be the best teachers they can be to support academics in the classroom. So all three of those components, making sure that social learning is intact and academic learning is intact, all of that is really important. And as a leader, as a principal, that is my job. My job is to make sure that I'm looking out for not only Carl, but I'm looking out for all the other students in that classroom. I'm looking out for the staff members, and making sure that every person in our and families, every person in our educational community can promote their own growth and success and be the healthiest version of themselves in the educational setting. So as an academic leader, I have to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can and being as present and involved in conversations, as well as observing teachers and making sure that personal feelings and emotions aren't tied to a student interaction, and making sure that every child has an opportunity, but also maintaining those guidelines and that are required laws, and making sure that we're keeping students in the most appropriate educational setting, because every child has the right to a free, appropriate public education. Thank you.